While originally released for the Wii, the definitive edition brings what was a solid showing for the console at the time more in line with what you might expect from the Switch. This is most noticeable in the character models, which sport an updated art style, bringing them closer to what was seen in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, with more vibrant colors and an overall greater sense of depth and detail. From a character design standpoint, the Homs in the cast are fairly down to earth, lacking the exaggerated proportions and outlandish hairstyles frequently seen in the genre. Other groups do break from this trend, from the High Entia with their head wings to the Machina with all manner of oddities to their designs, which gives each its own visual identity. But while the toned down nature of many of the designs is refreshing, it keeps some of the cast from standing out. Characters like Llamelion Fiora, after she receives her mechanical body, are just more visually interesting than someone like Shulk or Sharla. It doesn't help that character models change to reflect what armor they have equipped. While each character does have a default look, the need to accommodate numerous armor sets leads many to lack a strong visual hook. You can manually set what armor is displayed on a character so it's not constantly changing, which I recommend both because a standardized outfit helps them form more of an impression, and because your look carries over into cutscenes, and having a hodgepodge of clashing armor pieces doesn't really mesh well with the series' tone. Xenoblade Chronicles' calling card has always been its environments, however, and I still have no clue how Monolith Soft pulled off something this expansive on the Wii. Admittedly, many areas are a bit sparse, with fairly simplistic layouts when compared to games released today, but that didn't stop me from curiously combing every corner of the world. Nearly every location has some unique feature to it too. Toro Marsh goes from drab and lifeless during the day to awash in color and light at night, and some lucky few will be treated to a sky full of shooting stars while traversing the Air Sea. They also nail the sense of scale. You're almost always physically located somewhere on the Bionis itself, so glancing up often has you taking in the solemn visage of the Mechonis staring down at you from off in the distance. Then when Egil takes control of the Titan near the end of the game, it was awe-inspiring watching something so massive that only ever been an ominous figure on the horizon come to life. It should be stated up front that I adore Yoko Shimomura's work. From Kingdom Hearts to Final Fantasy 15, even if the game she's on doesn't connect with me, it's almost a guarantee her music will. You can imagine my excitement then when I learned that she, along with Tomori Kudo, Hiroyo Yamanaka, Kenji Hiramatsu, Manami Kiyota, and Yasunori Mitsuda all lent their talents to Xenoblade Chronicles. The moment the main theme kicks in, you know you're in for something special, with the chills-inducing piano only for it to swell halfway through, and there's just so much power and emotion. God, it's so good! That said, an OST is more than just the main theme, and while not every track hits like that does, each song is like bare minimum solid, with most rising far above that. It's a soundtrack I'd gladly listen to in my free time, and not just because it plays directly to my taste, with liberal use of the string section. This feat is even more impressive given the sheer amount of music on the OST. Many areas even have separate day and night themes, which they didn't have to do, but it helps so much with a sense of atmosphere and keeps any one song from growing repetitive. If I had to describe the OST as a whole, I'd call it melancholic and nostalgic. There's this undercurrent of looking back on the past, but rather than dwelling on it, it feels more appreciative, while also understanding that moving forward is a part of life, and just because some things are lost, that doesn't mean they're forgotten, or that what comes next can't be better than what came before. I am once again suffering beneath the weight of too many songs I want to share, so while I'm only going to pick one to highlight here, do me a favor and check out the rest sometime if you get the chance. You can just tell the team put everything they had in this, and their work deserves to be appreciated. For now though, please enjoy this brief snippet of the Xenoblade Chronicles main theme. You may recall that Xenoblade Chronicles wasn't originally slated to be released in the US. Because of this, Nintendo of Europe was given the reins when it came to English localization, resulting in voice work pulling from all across the British Isles, and what we got was one of the best localizations in the genre. Without the usual heightened personality traits or designs, the writing and performances are where characters really get to shine. A standout for me is Melia, played by Jenna Coleman, who you may recognize as Clara Oswald from Doctor Who. She puts in a stellar performance, definitely conveying both the gravitas and uncertainty inherent to Melia's character.
I wasn't looking at anything in particular. If anything, Fiora, I was thinking about the future that awaits us all.
Wow, you're so much more thoughtful than me.
Really? I don't think so. I was just answering your question.
Really though, you can say something similar about anyone in the core cast. Karina Reeves' performance as Fiora is a large part of why her death in the opening hours is as impactful as it is. Rufus Jones brings just the right level of understanding and confidence needed for Dunban as the wise older brother. I do want to shout out Adam Howden as Shulk. It's an understated performance that comes into its own as the game progresses, but as the plot kicks into gear, all of the mixed up, jumbled up emotions bubbling within seep into Howden's performance.
Yes, I want to. I'll kill him. For Fiora. For the Emperor. For my home!
You must find your Monado. Are you ready?
Are you feeling hungry, eh? Chew on this, scrap for brain.
Kill a Homs to beat us.
Egil once wished only to break the circle of suffering.
Until I've scrapped each and every one of you!
Maynard, the villagers, everyone loved you.
Yes.
That is why they wish to live alongside
End
you.
it. The weight
It's
is
all
what
so
you
clear.
want.
To Maynard, and to me.
No! This isn't what I want!
The worst thing I could say is that some of the villains really ham it up. I immediately pegged Munkar as a bad guy based on Timothy Watson's delivery alone, and Anthony May cranks it up to 11 for Dixon post-Anza reveal, but none of these really detracted from the experience for me. If anything, it was the opposite, since it felt like the actors were having a great time. While Xenoblade Chronicles' narrative and characters are what kept me coming back in the latter half of the game, in the early hours that honor goes to the gameplay, the key pillar of which is the auto attack. Once a battle begins, characters automatically perform basic attacks when in range of an enemy. You still retain full control over movement, however, which sets up the real meat of the combat, battle arts. Battle arts are essentially abilities. Characters unlock new battle arts by leveling up and can assign up to 8 to the battle palette, which appears as a row on the bottom of the screen during combat. Since each battle art has its own cooldown that resets upon use, part of the strategy is waiting for the right moment to activate them, lest you risk not having one available when you really need it. Each character also has a unique talent art that charges as they perform auto attacks. Each talent art caters to that character's playstyle, such as Shulk's granting access to a Monado-specific battle palette, or Melia's triggering the secondary effect of her normal battle arts. Some battle arts also inflict one of a series of escalating status effects. These effects are Break, Topple, and Daze. I say escalating because enemies must be under the effect of the preceding status before they can move on to the next one. Battle arts are color-coded to let players know at a glance which status effect they inflict. Pink for Break, green for Topple, and yellow for Daze. Break doesn't do anything on its own besides setting enemies up to be toppled. Toppled enemies can't dodge, take increased crit damage, and ether attacks always crit on them. And lastly, dazed enemies are stunned, take increased damage, and have their auras removed. Auras being persistent buffs that some enemies and allies can trigger. In addition, normally Mechon can only be damaged by the Monado, but Mechon that have been toppled or dazed can be damaged by everyone. Two other features to keep in mind that play into this are spikes and chain attacks. Spikes come in 3 flavors: close range, topple, and counter. When the condition specified by the flavor is fulfilled, the player takes spikes damage. This is important if you, like me, get in the rhythm of setting up break, topple, and daze at the beginning of a fight only to be rocked by topple and do spikes. There are ways to mitigate this, and it's easy to play around once you know what enemies to watch out for, but it'll probably cause at least a couple deaths. Chain attacks, meanwhile, are tied to the party gauge, a 3-segmented bar in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Using one segment lets you revive a fallen party member, while a full bar lets you perform a chain attack. During a chain attack, all 3 members of the active party may execute one battle art regardless of its current cooldown status. Once all 3 have been used, there's also a chance that a timed button prompt will appear. If done correctly, the chain will continue. Some enemies that are normally immune to break, topple, and daze can be inflicted with them only when battle arts that cause these status effects are used in succession as part of a chain attack. Lastly, on the battle mechanics front, there's a Monado. In addition to being Shulk's primary weapon, during battle, the Monado can also warn him of impending character death, enemy talent arts, basically anything that could spell trouble for the party. A timer then appears counting down to when this event will occur, giving you a chance to prevent it. I barreled through a lot of information there, but as you might expect with a game of this length, not only are new features doled out at a steady pace, but there is ample time for you to try your hand at each before the next one comes along. Heck, Spikes wasn't even introduced until I was like 30 hours in, so if all of this seems overwhelming, worry not, as the game itself is a much better teacher than I am. Getting more into character specifics, Xenoblade Chronicles borrows the DPS tank healer trifecta common in MMOs. For those unfamiliar, this means that each of the 7 playable characters roughly specializes in either dealing damage, taking damage, or healing/support. A good example of this is Shulk, Rein, and Sharla. Shulk is very much a damage dealer with attack-focused battle arts that get a boost when executed from specific positions. Rein is the tank with high defense and battle arts that draw enemy attention, or aggro. And Sharla is the healer / support, attacking from range to keep out of harm's way, with battle arts that heal and shield allies. Where the setup gets interesting is with the later editions, as each puts their own spin on their respective roles. Dunban is a tank, but rather than being a brick wall, his stats lean into evasion and high damage output to draw enemy aggro. Melia is a healer / support, but her battle arts have primary and secondary effects. The former focused on buffing allies, while the latter might deal damage or cause status ailments. To effectively use her, you need to find a good balance between the two to best avoid drawing enemy aggro. Only 3 party members can be on the field at once, and there's no switching between them mid-combat, so whoever you're controlling at the start of a fight is who you get. I mostly stuck with Shulk. He's balanced well for almost every situation, plus he's the only reliable means of taking down Mechon for much of the game, but there are a number of systems that incentivize switching things up. One of these is Affinity, which I discussed earlier, but there's also in-game achievements that reward you for using battle arts with each character a certain number of times. Between these two, I did eventually relent and try out the rest of the cast. While not every playstyle appealed to me, I did come away with a better understanding of each character's role in combat. In some cases, it even got me to switch out battle arts I had equipped for dozens of hours based on their descriptions, only to realize after some hands-on time that there were much better options. One non-combat gameplay quirk I want to quickly mention is jumping, which is both stiff and tops out at a height just low enough to prevent you from going over most obstructions. I can't tell you the number of times I saw a fence and was like, I bet I can jump over that, only to quickly realize that I could not, in fact, jump over that. I'd be the first to admit that Xenoblade Chronicles gameplay may not seem that appealing based on descriptions and footage alone. It kinda comes off as just a lot of staring at cooldowns and walking in circles around enemies, which it kind of is, but there was always something to pay attention to. A cooldown I've been waiting on about to time out, but then a party member call out lets me know they're going to inflict breaks, so I should ready topple, but oh wait, enemy's aura just went up, so I should take that down real quick. As odd as it may sound, I found it all relaxing as I sank into my chair and lost myself in the rhythm of combat. Since this is an RPG, the gameplay also benefits from the inherent satisfaction of watching numbers go up. At a basic level, there's, well, leveling. Gain enough experience and characters level up, getting stat boosts, new battle arts, etc. Battle arts can also be leveled using arts points, or AP. Leveling battle arts may increase damage, reduce cooldown time, lengthen the duration of auras, and so on. Battle arts start at level 1 and cap out at 10. Only the first 4 levels are available from the beginning, however. To access levels 5 through 7, you need to purchase the corresponding intermediate book, levels 8 through 10 requiring advanced books, which can only be found in chests or by defeating high-level monsters. The Definitive Edition also has master books that raise the level cap to 12, but these can only be purchased after finishing the future connected storyline added in this version. Each character also has several skill trees, 3 at first with 2 more unlockable after completing certain side quests. You have to manually assign a character to a specific skill tree, and from then on, any skill points or SP gained goes towards unlocking skills in that tree. Skills range from granting access to different armor types to increasing strength during certain times of day. In addition, increasing affinity between 2 characters opens up skill link slots, letting them equip skills from other party members. Then there's gear in the form of weapons, armor, and gems. Each character has their own distinct weapon type, and there's not much to differentiate one weapon from another beyond damage output, so upgrades are more of a straight numbers game. Armor, meanwhile, can be equipped to a character's head, torso, arms, legs, and feet, and come in 3 varieties: light, medium, and heavy. Each has benefits and drawbacks. Light may offer less overall protection, but frequently has more slots for gems, while heavy is the reverse, incredible defensive power, but fewer gem slots, so not quite as customizable. Gems can be slotted into armor so long as they have slots for them, and grant bonuses like boosting HP, making characters harder to detect, and resisting spikes damage. If you're looking for something in particular, there's also gem crafting, using ether crystals and ether cylinders gained from defeating enemies and gathered from ether deposits. The means by which you can customize characters are numerous, but perhaps a bit too much so. The amount of equipment I found was egregious. My inventory was constantly flooded with junk I had to sift through in hopes of finding something that was marginally better than what I had already. And while I do like gems quite a bit, it was fun choosing which ones best suited each character's playstyle, I did find gem crafting to be kind of pointless. I eventually started selling off all of my ether crystals and ether cylinders because the gems I got from side quests and whatnot were more than serviceable. I'm not a fan of crafting systems in general, but I will still engage with them if the payoff is there. I just didn't find that to be the case here. My last gripe is skill links. The idea is decent, encouraging players to raise affinity while also letting them further tailor characters' playstyle by giving them access to skills they wouldn't normally have, but between the difficulty in raising affinity, the limitations on what skills can be equipped, and skills as a whole not feeling super impactful, I often forgot about them or just didn't bother since it wasn't worth my time. That said, one benefit of having so many systems is that for every one I didn't care for, there were like at least 3 I did. Between gaining EXP, AP, and SP, putting on new equipment, changing up skill trees, and switching switching out gems, there's always something I could equip, upgrade, or level up. And that's not even mentioning the in-game achievement system, doling out experience for everything from visiting secret areas to dealing out exactly 666 points of damage. There's also the Collectopedia, which was hands down one of my favorite things in the entire game. Each place you visit has little floating blue moats littering the map, and by walking over one, you'll get an item corresponding to various flora and fauna native to the area. Collecting them fills out the Collectopedia, which in turn grants rewards, first for finishing a set in a given category, and then an overall reward for fully filling out that location. It's a small thing that succeeded in encouraging me to get out and explore the world, while also playing directly into my need to stuff my satchel with all of the things. All of this together created an incredibly addictive gameplay loop, leading to ever longer play sessions as I put off taking a break to do just one more thing. You may recall the sheer number of side quests in Xenoblade Chronicles being a contributing factor to my putting off playing the game. For reference, the starting area alone nets you around 50, and by the time I hit credits I'd completed close to 400, with plenty still waiting for me should I ever decide to go back. Don't let these numbers intimidate you though, as the side quests fit so neatly into the overall flow of the game that they quickly became just a natural part of my play sessions, with the added bonus of consistently satisfying rewards and neat bits of story and lore. Much of the success here comes down to the game's structure and pacing. Xenoblade Chronicles is very aware that it is a video game and doesn't mind you getting distracted or lock away fast travel when characters should technically be stuck somewhere. The pacing also means that while there is steady forward momentum, the narrative doesn't feel like it's on a ticking clock until fairly late into the game. These two together create ample opportunities to take breaks, hit up previous areas, and assist townsfolk. It helps that the process of doing side quests is incredibly snappy. Each shows up as an exclamation mark on the map, and after making your way to the corresponding NPC, all it takes is a couple lines of dialogue before you're off. Same goes for turning quests in, with many giving you rewards as soon as they're done, while others just require a quick return visit to the quest giver. In spite of this, many side quests also have a ton of personality. Whether it's gathering materials for two Hyantia adventuring partners or helping a Nopon decide who to marry, the game excels at injecting entertaining story beats without wasting time. There are a few hitches, the greatest offenders being the defeat X number of enemies quest. Each area you go to will have at least one NPC that'll hand out a string of these with little context beyond please defeat these monsters. All of them could have easily been cut and the game would have been better for it. Also, Monolith Soft has a hard time knowing when to pull back on the side quests. You'll be walking through an abandoned city, steps away from facing a leader in the Mechon, and they just straight up put in terminals that give you a dozen more side quests. That said, I did still do several hundred of them because, most are easy enough to do while wandering around, plus the item and experience rewards are usually worthwhile, and yes, I do realize that I'm part of the problem. And so, here I sit at the end of my review, and much like my time spent at Xenoblade Chronicles, the journey has been longer than I thought it would be, and yet I find myself oddly reluctant to let it go. Even with more games in the series left to tackle, there was just something so unexpectedly special about this first one. No matter what obstacles sauntered into my path, it always managed to pull me back in. Whether it was with its inspired world, daunting in scale and begging to be explored, its cozy combat I still found compelling after countless enemy hordes, characters and story steeped in nuance and lore, or its masterfully composed and moving score. Well, part of me wishes I could have brought myself to play it sooner. In the end, I'm just happy I got to experience something as wonderful as Xenoblade Chronicles at all. As mentioned earlier, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition has a bonus story called Future Connected. I played through it all and it took me about 15 hours to do all the side quests and finish the story and whatnot. Highly recommend playing through it. It acts as a great epilogue to the Xenoblade Chronicles narrative while also fixing a lot of the little issues I had with the base game. I really enjoyed it. The character work is great. The main story is kind of meh, but it wraps up specifically Melia's story in such a great way that if you're like me and really enjoyed her character, you owe it to yourself to check it out. Besides that, I want to thank everyone for checking out this review and staying to the end. It really means a lot. If you enjoy my work, consider subscribing, sharing it around. I hear the like buttons and comments help too. All that said, take care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you all next time.